So coming to the next topic, hash include preprocessor directive. Hash include preprocessor directive, which is also called as file inclusive directive. We use hash include directive to include contents of another file, especially we call them as header files, to a program. We can include a file in two different ways. One is with the help of hash include. Within the less than and greater than sign, we are going to write the file.h. This variant of including header file, such as header files in the standard header file directory. Standard headers, the directory is the path where all the header files are stored. Syntax to use is we need to write with the help of hash include followed by the file name followed by .h, which is nothing but the header file. For example, hash include stdio.h, which is nothing but standard input output header file. String.h, which is used for string manipulation function. Math.h for mathematical functions. The next way of representing hash include is hash include followed by the file name. We should write that file name within the inverted commas. So it represents the file within the current directory. So we use this variant for including file when we want to include our own or custom header files. So it searches the file in the current directory and then in the standard header file directory. So how we need to use this is hash include followed by we can give the path of the header file where the file is being stored. Please remember we should represent within the inverted commas. And we can write the file where we want to include as part of our given program. So here is a small example, hash include stdio.h. So this is one type of file inclusion. The second one is hash include math.h. So if you want to implement any mathematical functions, we can write math.h. These are standard libraries. And the custom library, if I want to represent, hash include main.h. Hash include win or display.h or dot followed by the program name .c. So standard input output header file is used for all the operations related to the standard input output, and main.h or win or display.c, these are custom files. These are custom files. So this is how we can use hash include preprocessor directive. And the next one is hash define preprocessor directive. Hash define preprocessor directive is most useful preprocessor directive in C language. So we use it to define a name for particular value or constant or expression. C preprocessor processes the defined name and replace each occurrence of the particular string or defined name, that is a macro name, with a given value or macro body. So the syntax is hash define macro name. So remember, the macro name should be written in the uppercase. This is just for our understanding that there is a macro substitution done, followed by macro body. Here macro name is a C identifier and macro body is string or value or expression. So this is how hash define is being implemented. The next one, hash undefine preprocessor directive. Hash undef preprocessor directive. So we use hash undef directive to remove a defined macro. We usually undefine a macro when we do not require or want to redefine it. To redefine a macro, we need to undefine the macro and redefine it. The syntax is hash undef of macro name, where the macro name is the macro to remove. The next one is hash ifdef, hash ifndef and hash ndef, conditional preprocessor directive. So we use conditional directive to check if a macro is defined or not. Both ifdef and ifndef are complements to each other. Hash ifdef conditional directive, hash ifdef will compile all code if a given macro is defined. The syntax is hash ifdef followed by macro name, where macro name is our macro to test if defined. The next one is hash ifndef. So here the conditional directive that it says hash ifndef similar to hash ifdef just works as a complement. It process block, that is if process block of code, if it is already given, that is a macro is not defined, stating that a macro is not defined. The syntax here is hash ifndef of macro name, where macro name is our macro to test if not defined. The very important condition to note over here is conditional directive hash ifdef or ifndef must end with hash ndef. That is, hash ndef defines scope of the conditional directive. We use conditional directive to restrict file loading multiple times. So this is the how with the usage of ifdef, ifndef, ndef, conditional preprocessor directives. Now let us see the next one, hash if, hash elif, comma, hash else and hash undefine preprocessor directives. So C supports conditional compilation preprocessors directive similar to if else statements in C. We use them for conditional compilation. C conditional preprocessor directive compiles multiple conditional code blocks. Now let us see the syntax of this. Hash if expression, that means if the condition is true, the piece of blocks will be executed. Hash elif expression, which means if else if condition is true. Hash else, if no condition is true, the particular block will be executed. And the last one is hash ndef. So this is how we are going to represent the hash if, hash elif, hash ndef. Let us take one example. Hash include stdio.h, hash define India is 1, hash define USA is equal to 2, hash define UK is 3. So these are the defines and these are the hash include. The next one, hash define country India, hash define country India. So in main, int main, I am writing it as hash if country is double equal to India, which means we need to print the selected country code is %d/n and we are going to print that country code. So here if the condition is true, it will print the country code is 1 because already we have defined as hash define int India is 1. Next, hash elif country is double equal to USA. So elif, which means if condition is failed, then go for the else part, that is elif, and check the condition in else. Country is double equal to USA, print selected country code is %d/l followed by the country. Next, if the both conditions are failed, then hash else, which means if both the conditions are failed, now we are going to print the last one. The selected country is %d/n comma country. And now, after finishing off all these things, we need to write hash ndef. Then close it with return 0 and close the curly brace. Now, when you execute this particular code, you are going to get the output as selected country code is 1. Because the first condition itself, it has been successfully, condition is true. Then you are going to get the result as selected country code is 1.